Now, Manchester United co-owner Ineos has blamed cost-saving measures across its business for an alleged breach of sponsorship of New Zealand Rugby, a move that has led to legal action from the governing body. Well, New Zealand Rugby says the global chemicals producer owned by British billionaire Sir Jim Ratcliffe walked away from a 6-year deal, leaving them no choice but to launch legal proceedings. Ineos says it's contributed more than £24 million to the rugby teams in recent years, but the struggling chemicals industry in Europe means they have had to implement cost-saving measures across the business. Our senior reporter Rob Dorset is here. Right, Rob, legal fees, cost-saving measures across the business. Should Manchester United fans be worried?
It doesn't sound great, does it? I've got to be honest. Well, look, on the face of this, Mike, when this story broke last night, it seemed a pretty isolated situation involving one specific part of the Ineos business and New Zealand Rugby. But I think it's Ineos' statement today that has put a completely different complexion on all of that. Remember, this is a huge firm, a massive petrochemical firm, co-owns Man United, 36 different companies. This is the bit of the statement, Mike, that really leaps out at me. They said today in their statement, Ineos, we are witnessing the deindustrialisation of Europe. That sounds seismic for a petrochemical firm, doesn't it?
Yep.
And then they said, as a result, we've had to implement cost-saving measures across the business. Across the business sounds like everybody that they own. And Manchester United is one of the biggest companies, the most important, one of the highest profile companies that they own, of course. And you look at the evidence of what they've already done in terms of cost cutting, it's very obvious across their sports portfolio. They've ended a long-term agreement with Ben Ainsley and their support of the Britannia America's Cup sailing team. That had been in place since 2018. And the Ineos Grenadiers cycling team, they're searching for some new investors to go alongside Ineos because the chief executive of the Ineos Grenadiers said Ineos don't want to spend more money. None of that points to a picture of a firm in rude health financially right now.
And we already know that they've been making cuts at Manchester United. Talk us through their cost-saving measures.
They've been very open about that. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said in a couple of interviews that he thinks there's been huge inefficiencies right across the business. So just before Christmas, there were protests outside Old Trafford when he announced that the basic ticket price was going up to £66 as a minimum. There were going to be no concessions for children. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself had to say, we've had to make some difficult and unpopular decisions. If you shy away from those difficult decisions, then nothing much is going to change. About 250 job losses across Old Trafford of a workforce of about 1,000 people, so a quarter of the workforce has gone already. And the latest accounts, up to June 2024, £113.2 million losses. That's a total losses over 5 years of more than £370 million. You can see why this chap wants to cut some costs when the rest of his business is struggling financially. But none of that bodes well for Manchester United going forward.
No, and you don't cut costs when you have to pay lawyers. So what happens with the New Zealand legal case?
Well, again, the language that's being used here, I think, is very, very interesting because New Zealand Rugby are going on the attack. They've said we have been left with no option but to launch legal proceedings to protect our commercial position. They are suing Ineos for breach of contract. Ineos on the defensive. We sought to reach a sensible agreement with the All Blacks to adjust our sponsorship. Unfortunately, rather than working towards a managed solution, New Zealand Rugby has chosen to pursue legal action. We remain in ongoing discussions. Ineos hope they can bring them to the table and come to some sort of deal so that it doesn't end up in the courts and doesn't end up costing them a lot more money as well.
Goodness, this feels like it might be really important. Rob Dorset, our senior reporter. Thank you, Rob.